This next part of House of Broken Angels is that stood out to me was this paragraph that really describes what I say when you're writing create sensory imagery. That means put the reader in the moment, make them feel the light, touch something, smell something, hear something, and that really puts the reader in that place and in that mind of the character. So I thought this was a beautiful passage right here. Outside, the afternoon sun burned apertures in the clouds, charring the floating crevices red along their edges and shooting hauntings of yellow light across the city. Like curtains of golden mesh blowing in a cool breeze, Big Angel calculated in his mind how far toward Hawaii the sun must be. He saw angles and degrees etched into the blue above the flaming clouds. Heaven was a blueprint. I know there's words in there that are challenging. I totally get that. So the next part of this is I'm going to go through and we're going to get a little more background knowledge onto some of the words and describe and start to talk about how we think these words make this passage meaningful. So here are some of the words that are in this passage that may be challenging. Outside, the afternoon sun burned apertures in the clouds. So an aperture is the opening of a camera lens that allows more or less light. So outside, the afternoon sun burned more light, different degrees of light in the clouds. So when you look up at clouds and you see the different rays of sun poking through them, that's that image there. Charring the floating crevices red along their edges. Charring means burning. So when you see the afternoon sun coming through the clouds at different degrees and you see that edge of color of maybe a burnt red, the floating crevices means there's grooves in the clouds along their edges and shooting hauntings of yellow light, so that haunting reminds me of ghosts. So if you see kind of a vaporous yellow light mixing in with the red burnt edges of the clouds, the different degrees of light. Like curtains of golden mesh. So mesh is like a knitted pattern or a net. So if you see, that's a simile right there because he uses the word like. So if you see this golden mesh pattern blowing through a cool breeze. So you have this feeling of the heat of the sun, the red, the warmth, the yellow, but you also have a contrast of golden and a cool breeze. Big Angel calculated in his mind how far toward Hawaii the sun must be. He saw angles and degrees etched into the blue above the flaming clouds. Heaven was a blueprint. So he's watching the sunset right now. He's in California. He's watching the sun head toward the west and going back behind the clouds and the rays of sun. And he's just watching a beautiful sunset and thinking about somewhere else in the world that has the sun coming towards them. And heaven being a blueprint, if you start to see the stars in the sky and the patterns in the constellations, you might want to think about that might be a pattern. And maybe he's also thinking about his own life and his own place in the world and what might happen after he passes away. I just think that's a beautiful passage. So let's try our own sensory imagery drafting, and then we can turn this into a poem. So right now, look out a window and describe what it might smell like outside. Describe the amount of light that's outside. For example, today is a rainy day and there's not a lot of light. It's very gray and drippy and rainy. What sounds are outside? And if you can't hear them because the window is shut, just imagine it or open up the window for a few seconds and just jot down what you hear. Like right now I hear the rain dripping. Yesterday morning I heard birds, and I don't know the different types of birds, and I'm kind of curious about what they are. Okay. If you could touch something outside, what would you be able to touch? And where's the sun right now? So it is noon as I'm filming this, and I can't see the sun, but I'm assuming it's straight up ahead. There's no shadows because of the cloudiness of the rain, and yeah. Is there something I could taste outside? Well, I don't have a vegetable garden, and there's no ice cream truck or anything like that, so there's nothing outside that I would want to try to taste, except I guess I could smell the raindrops, and that definitely has a smell. So there might not be anything to taste, and that's, part of drafting something is just kind of thinking about those things. If I did have a vegetable garden, I would have tomatoes right now, and I love homegrown tomatoes, and I should grow some, but I'm getting off track. Sorry. So right now I'm just going to draft out some words. All right, so what I'm going to do now is going to keep taking this draft and keep working it through. Try to do the same, and then we can get to the next part where you can choose words, delete words, add words, and come up with a 5-line poem. It does not have to rhyme. It's just a very tiny little poem about where you are right now when you look out the window. You can title it even looking out the window, or whatever you prefer, and just give it a shot. Try it. Thanks.